We're going to see a number of heats. We're told that there are 8-person boats and 4-person boats going to be hitting the waters today. And of course, if you count the number of heads in the boat, you'll actually see 9, and that 9th person is known as the coxswain, and they are the person who kind of shouts out the cadence to make sure that those oars hit the water properly. And again, there you can see shooting right over the barge canal as they make their way down under the bridge. And the open heats as they come across the water. Again, this is a competitive, but not on the competition level that you would normally see during regular season. This is a limited stroke rate. This is something that the student athletes are very excited about, coming down here to the beautiful Space Coast. And we're going to talk in detail about these boats themselves. But there you can see the rowers making their way through. And right now it looks like Louisville is about a half a boat length as they cruise into position. And right at the barge marker is going to be the start-finish line. And again, with these boats, you're talking some of the most technologically advanced when it comes to the aquadynamics, much like aerodynamics, you know, and how they flow through the water, and getting up close to these boats with the composites and lightweight metals that they use. The long part of the boat that they sit in is actually called a shell, and the little arms that hold the oars on the outside are called riggers. And again, if you guys are very adept at rowing, I do apologize for the mundaneness, but hopefully we're appealing to a group out there that is going to be new to rowing and seeing some of this very unique sport in its glory right here on our beautiful Space Coast. One of the oldest collegiate sports. In fact, the very first time that two colleges competed against each other in any sport was 1852 in the sport of rowing, Harvard versus Yale. So getting to know the Louisville, Kentucky team, they are their head coach, Derek Copeland, you know, he was quoted as saying, "It allows us to get to the business of building fast lineups, beginning to compete and establish a rhythm of how we want our trips to play out this semester. This is a new location for us," referring to Cocoa Beach, "and they're excited to dig in and train alongside the Tennessee Volunteers." And of course, being down here in these warmer waters is a great respite for these young ladies who can come down here and enjoy the beautiful Florida weather as opposed to the heavy rains that Tennessee is experiencing right now. And we were talking to the young ladies earlier. They were very, very excited about being down here. So this bodes very well for the Space Coast. As we see them steadying the boats for the start. And again, this is going to be a limited stroke rate of 28 strokes per minute. And they are in the confines of the barge canal, so you're going to see very calm waters. Rowing is brand new for myself, and we're off. As they make their way through, each one of these strokes is almost like military precision as they make their way along the barge canal, and they're going to be coming out here in front of us. You can see here that they are neck and neck. And you see there both the teams from Tennessee. They're taking right now about a 1-seat lead out there in front of the Louisville team as they make their way across in front. Each one of those paddles. Got our aerial shot there coming from the barge canal. And again, you can see that first team there at the bottom of your screen. They are about a half a boat length ahead of Louisville and about a 3-seat lead ahead of their Tennessee teammates. And they'll make their way to the end of the barge canal, and you'll see this. It's just an amazing, the precision as they row. Now, the rowers themselves, you'll see those paddles, they actually turn, and the spoon shape as they hit the water and they make those strokes, they force the water, but at the same time, they've got to rotate those back and get those back in the water. They have to hit almost identically at the same time as they hit the waters in great precision. So you can see there, as we zoom in, the Louisville team. And we see these teams here. The 8-person boat making their way through, and that team 1 there down at the bottom is really hitting some good open water. Team 2 for Tennessee at the right of your screen there. Team 1 takes a substantial lead. They're now a full boat length ahead of the Team 2 for Tennessee as they make their way into more of the mouth of the water as they head towards the Indian River side. And again, we want to thank our sponsors today, the Dolphins Grill. They're being fantastic hosts right here along the waters. And a great shot there of them and the natural beauty here that we offer on the Space Coast. And our drone footage, and you can see there that Team 2 has overtaken Team 1 for Tennessee, and they now sit at about 2 seats ahead. Louisville has fallen back, and they're right now about 2 boat lengths back from the second place Tennessee team as they make their way towards the mouth of the barge canal out towards the Indian River, and those chase boats on the left and the right. And you can see that precision as those paddles hit the water, just absolutely near perfect each time when they make these strokes. And the second batch has started. These are the 4-person teams. Now, the 4-person teams do not have a coxswain in the boat. These are absolute 4-member teams. And you can see there's 2 Tennessee teams and 2 Louisville teams. Louisville are in the white boats. And in the charcoal colored boats are Tennessee. And again, Tennessee, they're at the bottom of your screen. They take off, and it looks like Louisville has kind of lost a little bit of their lane as they drift off. And you can see the coxswain in the boat actually laying down towards the front, so you won't see the head of the coxswain like you will on an 8-person boat. They are sitting almost in a prone position at the front of the boat. Louisville, they are the second team for Louisville. They got a little bit off course as they drifted to the left. And on the 4-person team, you can see here that they are making their way down the barge canal. And the 4-person teams here, Louisville fading to the back there to the right of your screen, and to the left of your screen there you have the 4-person boat. Those ladies are just again in perfect precision as they propel their boat forward. They're about 3 or 4 boat lengths now ahead of their teammates there in the other Louisville boat. And the Louisville ladies there, they have gotten their boat back on track, back in their lane, and they're actually gaining ground as they get their lane back in order. And There you can see the almost glass-like conditions here on the beautiful barge canal. Brackish water that meets the Indian and Banana rivers. Of course, this barge canal has got a nice wide berth. It is deep water. It is protected from the winds. And for everybody on Facebook, we want to welcome you. Again, we are here at Dolphins Bar and Grill right here on the Merritt Island Barge Canal. As we had started our broadcast, we were actually broadcasting. We're doing a simul broadcast right now. This is going out over YouTube and Facebook. So for those of you on Facebook, we thank you for joining us. And again, you're seeing an aerial view of our drone coverage footage. This is looking straight down at the Barge Canal. Again, that connects the Indian River and the Banana River. Right here is the Dolphins restaurant right in the shadows of the Barge Canal on State Road 3. On the very bottom of your screen in the charcoal color boat with the orange paddles, you can see the first team from Tennessee. And there in the middle, you can see the second team from Tennessee, and out of view, you can see the teams there from Louisville. As the team from Tennessee has just got a nice rhythm as they go. And again, we want to welcome you and just give you a brief overview of these incredible, incredible boats. This is known as sweep rowing, as these are the one person, one paddle. Now there is rowing where you will see one person with two paddles, and that is known as sculling. So that is the difference of the nomenclature when it comes to rowing. And again, I do apologize. Rowing is brand new to me. Of course, I've seen it at the Olympics. Saw it live in 1996 in Atlanta. It is a fantastic sport. It is a sport that would bode very well here in Brevard County, and a big shout out to all of our crew teams at the high school level here in Brevard, and of course our collegiate level team there at Florida Tech, who has a very good rowing team, and they row out of Crane Creek down there in Melbourne. And there's a shot you can kind of see right where we're at the Dolphins restaurant right here on the beautiful Space Coast. And in this empty chair next to me, my companion here, Mr. Giles Malone, is going to be joining us. And what we saw was the first of the heats. And again, just some information. These two teams, it is the ladies rowing team from Louisville and the ladies rowing team from Tennessee. They are joining us here in beautiful Cocoa Beach for a spring training. And there are a number of teams down here for spring training. As Giles gets set up here, he pops on his headsets. And Giles, welcome. It's good to have you here at the broadcast, and something extremely special right here going on the Space Coast today. Kind of history in the making, if you will.
Yeah, it's really exciting, isn't it, Ron, to be able to do something like this, looking at those drone shots there. I mean, it's spectacular.
It really is, and it's so conducive. We talked to Terry Parks with the Space Coast Office of Tourism earlier, and he talked about the different venues, and it's the wide water, the protected water, the water that doesn't have a lot of movement, all the way from up near Hallover Canal in Titusville down to obviously here, oars and paddles along the Mathers Bridge, and of course C-54. So there's really just a great rowing opportunity for these teams to spring train down here.
Yes, and my early years, I grew up in England, so the Oxford and Cambridge boat race was an annual tradition, sort of like, the Super Bowl, if you will. It was one of those things every year you look forward to, and seeing those great pictures of the boats from Oxford and Cambridge up and down the Thames, it's really an iconic view. And seeing it here today on Space Coast Daily, it's exciting to think that we could possibly become the epicenter of winter training for rowing teams from around the world.
And like a lot of our viewers, I am brand new to rowing, so I don't want to say I'm fumbling my way through, but I have done a little bit of study on rowing, the history of rowing, and trying to acclimate myself to a lot of this rowing information. So like a lot of viewers, this is brand new for me.
Yeah.
And you know what better place? We're seeing the dolphins right out in front of us here, frolicking in the water as you see them crest. But again, we want to thank Dolphins Bar and Grill for hosting us. This is a great venue. I mean, we are perched in perfect position here.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the importance of hosting events like this on the Space Coast, especially appealing to teams out there that may be watching this and they're wondering where they can spring train and bring their teams. There is really a great effort to make this effortless for coaches. You know, package deals with the lodging, with the travel, and being so close to where your boat drops in the water.
Yeah, you know, these college teams are looking for affordable, you know, reasonably nice, high-quality accommodations, and we've got so many of those here for everything from Cape Crossings, you can see here, all up and down the Space Coast. There's BRMBs, there's houses for rent, of course, the great hotels of Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral. So we offer really something that not too many places can offer. We're so close, you know, to the Orlando airport, so they fly in there and then they, you know, get rental vans and they come over. So it's affordable for them. It's
we talked to a number of young ladies earlier, and it's fun for the student athlete. They're out of their kind of their home atmosphere, and it's fun for them to travel and kind of have that work fun mix of that spring break fun, but at the same time the training discipline.
Yeah, it's an ideal spot. We're excited about it. You know, I live down here on Merritt Island. I see these collegiate teams for years, but they've been fairly unorganized, not coordinated in terms of their local visits to...
And relatively independent. You know, they come down, they just kind of do their own thing.
Terry Parks, you know, they've really come up with a good plan to organize this and make it a, you know, an effort to where you can have scrimmages like this when colleges are down, so that there's a communication going on and there's a coordinated effort to make it you know, the best possible experience for them.
One of the neat things that we did talk to one of the young ladies earlier, and we'll have that interview here shortly, but she is an engineering student at the same time. She's a student athlete in the boat, and we had talked about the technology, and she was absolutely enamored with the technology, obviously here in the shadows of the Kennedy Space Center. And that same technology, how that parlays itself into the actual boats with the composite materials and the engineering that goes into these rowing these shells, and not only that, but also the riggers and the different things. And much like any racing, like any competition, weight matters, aerodynamics matter, aquadynamics matter.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to those athletes being able to perform. And the first heat that we had here, you could just see precision.
Are you making a point there about weight, Ron, not wanting me to get in one of these skulls? Is that what you're talking about? You and me, you and I wouldn't look too good in one of those skulls. I got to tell you a quick funny story, though. A famous tale back in England. The Oxford and Cambridge boat race was going on one year, and of course it's televised worldwide. The BBC's there, the ITV, and the great iconic race of Oxford and Cambridge. You know, it's followed, and this commentator makes this incredible gaffe, one of the gaffes of all time. Okay, because Oxford and Cambridge, it was a really close race, and they were coming up to the finish line, and Oxford the actual scull boat started to sink. And of course the coxswain is the person making the calls, right? So this commentator from the BBC says, "Oh my goodness me, you know, Oxford are dipping their coxswain in the water." So that's one of the classics of all time as far as commentators making a gaffe. So we won't make that
What a
mistake.
Beautiful shot here. I mean, just
today, Ron.
Just something that the Space Coast offers. Just a great aerial shot there. Of course, you got 528 there to the right. We pan to the left, and out there on the horizon is the beautiful Kennedy Space Center and all these beautiful lands of Merritt Island and the Indian River. So you can see these boats lined up, the four-person boats there, and they're off here now. We're down to the 3 teams as they get restaged, and from the left to the right on your screen, that white boat is the 8-person team for Louisville. The 2 boats to the right of your screen are from Tennessee. And again, Giles, I mean, each one of those paddles is hitting that water exactly right on cue. I mean, just military-like precision.
Yeah, it's so cool. We're sitting in Dolphin's restaurant, which for me It's one of the finest, nicest places.
Fantastic
to enjoy,
venue.
the
Can't say
waterfront.
enough.
The food and drinks are great here. We're looking at the big screens in the restaurant, watching this, and it's incredible to see. Gavin Keith, by the way, is flying this the Space Coast Daily Super Drone. What a great, beautiful, high-quality image that is. Look at that. There he is. There's Bill.
Bill Juergens joining us.
Yeah. Hi, Bill. How are you today? Maybe. Yeah.
You look at the puddles, they're almost overlapping one another. Very close race. You can realize that the coxswains are almost in each other's seat looking across and cheering their team on, calling power tens. It's really what you would call this is the boats are locked on. And they're really moving nicely. You look at the run, and they're getting about 8 feet of run, which is, well, let's see, let me check again. Maybe 6 or 7 feet of run, which is very good. And the straightness of the course really lends itself to rowing, and the conditions are perfect. You like calm conditions.
Wow, look at that. Spectacular. Oh, yeah.
Bill, if I could ask you a question real quick. The coaches kind of had a coaches agreement to limit this to 28 strokes per minute. Does that affect any of the training or what we're seeing on the competition level on the water now?
Well, the reason they limit the stroke race, the stroke cadence or rate, is that they're in training now. And they're building their cadence up from, say, the 28 to 30 up to 36 and 38. But 36 and 38 through the body of the race will not take place until April. So it's early on. It's very hard, by the way, to limit when you're racing, to keep your cadence down. But that's what the crews are trained for. That's where they're practicing right now. And if you can look at the two crews, they're dead even now, the two the Tennessee boats, and they finished. That was very close. That was a very good race. It's hard to imagine they could keep that rating down to 28 and still be competitive at the finish. But that's exactly what they want to do. They want to make sure that they're very efficient. You just cannot take your rating up to, say, 36 and be efficient when you're training. And Giles alluded to this earlier, is there's no better place in the country for training than the Space Coast. I mean, none. In fact, I couldn't imagine a location throughout the world that would allow so many crews the opportunity to practice in these ideal conditions. I mean, unfortunately, people up north are in blizzards right now. And here we are on a beautiful sunny day on calm water in the Merritt Island area. It's just, it's what I've always said.
And you speak with a great sense of authority on the sport itself, but also as athletic director. Who better than sing the praises of our beautiful waterways than the athletic director of Florida Tech, who has had extremely successful crew and rowing programs through the years?
Well, Bill, and I just want to thank you. This is how devoted Bill Juergens is to rowing and to developing the Space Coast. Bill's at home with COVID. He's actually taking the time to call in. I know you weren't feeling very well this morning, Bill. So we want to thank you for doing that, and thank you so much for all you've done for the Space Coast over the years in rowing. Florida Tech, of course, really a worldwide name in the sport of rowing, thanks to you and everything you did there at Florida Tech. So we want to thank you, Bill, and thanks for joining us today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. You know, I'm not over it, but as you can tell, I'm as normal as I can be.
Well, that's a stretch. I don't know about that, Bill, but we'll let that one slide. It's great to have you with us, and it's tell you what, it's really super to see these boats going up and down this canal. It's just something else.
It is something, I've worked with the Tourism Development Committee on and off for years. And I would like to thank Terry Parks because he realizes what is possible here. In other words, we'll have over 30 programs training in Brevard County this year, over 30. And they're bringing down, I would say 50 to 60 rowers staying for 10 days. What greater economic impact could there be in all the activities and all the sports in Brevard County than rowing? And how popular is it? One of the top programs in the country is Yale University. Yale University, it was down in January, and they're coming back in March. They're staying for 10 days, and they're one of the top 3 programs in the country. The last couple of years, they finished in the top 3. Prior to that, they won the national championship in men's rowing. So when I talked to Steve Gladstone, the head coach at Yale, he's no longer the head coach. He retired from Yale, and last year he was the national team coach for the fours. And when I talked to him, I said, do you know, I believe that this is the best training in the country. He said, well, I'm not here because it isn't. He said he's been here for the last 6 years. We've also had Columbia here. We've had Rutgers. We've had Northeastern. We've had so many crews just on the south end of the county. And there's 5 great locations in Brevard County. You've got Kiwanis Island, you have this pipe, you have the Space Coast.
Bill, let me. I had a couple questions for you, but right now Terry Parks with the Space Coast Office of Tourism is joining us as well. Talk a little bit about the relationship. You talked about working hand in glove with the Parks and Recreation Department. Terry, you can interject on this as well. There's a great vision of what this could really be. Go ahead and expound on that.
Absolutely. There's between Parks and Recreation, the local colleges and universities here on the Space Coast, Eastern Florida State College and Florida Institute of Technology, and the Office of Tourism, there's a great opportunity for us to work hand in hand and bring world-class events here, world-class training here, and just to really put the Space Coast on a platform to be seen by the world.
Just that premier, destination spot where, you and I joked earlier about our fantasy commercial running during the Olympics that, all of these Olympic rowing dreams could potentially launch from the Space Coast.
That is very, very true. In fact, we've had numerous national teams here training here recently, as a matter of fact, here. So that is completely true.
So, Bill, back to you. Talk a little bit about the vision and the great growth that you have seen here on the Space Coast, and where you could see rowing, because there are young people on the Space Coast that love the water. They grow up around the water, and these programs are accessible. And there is like Space Coast Crew, an independent arm of crew and rowing. So there are programs, but they could certainly use a boost or a shot in the arm to popularize this sport even further.
Well, it's a sport. It's a participation sport. Obviously, with the drones and the technology we have today, you can watch these races and you can see closely what's transpiring in a race. And this is great coverage that you have today. But as I said earlier, we've got so many locations here, and there's Oars and Paddles in Indian Harbor Beach, and it really speaks to what the county has done to promote rowing. When Thad Altman was on the county commission, he had access to purchase riverfront property, and the county did that. And then the county supported the Oars and Paddles Boathouse. And when I look at the Oars and Paddles Boathouse in Indian Harbor Beach, it's just packed with people. I mean, of
It's a
all
beautiful.
ages.
You can't say enough about the beauty and the maintenance of that facility. Of course, they have the boathouse, they have outdoor storage, but also the fact that they went above and beyond with the floating dock access that really says, hey, not only are we going to store these boats, not only are we going to give you an opportunity to gather, but we're going to give you all the necessary tools to safely get in and out of the water, which is huge for a lot of these teams.
Without a dock, you don't have launching a boat unless you have a sandy beach. And as I said, there's access for anyone who wants to pick up the sport of rowing through organizations like Oars and Paddle. And obviously, we've got a rowing team at Florida Tech who's hosted many teams in the past. We've hosted Pennsylvania. We've hosted MIT. We've hosted the University of Wisconsin. And when Wisconsin was down in the 80s, they were befriended by everyone in Brevard County. I mean, it's called a 7-mile canal in Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor Satellite Beach. And what a lot of people don't know is that not only is it great for rowing, but it's also great for canoe and kayak. And when we were able to bring the national canoe and kayaking team to Indian Harbor Beach to train, they attracted teams from Germany, many European countries, from all over the world. And in one of the previous Olympics, most of the teams that won Olympic medals trained in Brevard County. And that's not a well-known fact, but it's not a well-known fact also that there's over 30 colleges that come to Brevard County.
One of the most appealing aspects is our weather. Talk a little bit about training in the rain, and is that something that they can do when we get some of these showers? Because there are some people in the chat rooms wondering about, is this a rain-delayed type sports, or will they row through the rain?
Well, baseball and softball, when it's raining, it's another issue if there's puddles on the field. But obviously, football, the real problem in rain delay is lightning.
Right.
And there's a lot of safeguards to ensure that coaches are able to monitor the weather, and they can tell where the nearest lightning is. And when the lightning gets within 12 miles, usually it's even closer than that for other games. But if you're on the water, it takes more time to get off the water. So it's safety first. Safety's always going to be first. And the coaches are aware of that. They have the technology to know exactly where the lightning is and to be able to get off. As far as it doesn't hurt to get wet when you're rowing, it's a very strenuous sport. You're sweating. And if it's raining, you'll probably feel better. Even in colder weather, particularly now, we get a little chillier weather, and it's perfect conditions for training. There is no better site.
And during this training, of course, one of the things is we just had a brief delay as we had to get a boat turned around here. But of course, we're going to get back to the action here shortly. But talk a little bit about rowing's aspect when it comes to the teamwork, because watching these ladies in these boats, I mean, the only thing that came to mind was, I mean, their movements would make military generals jealous at the absolute precision of which they work together.
Well, the sport of rowing is unique in that we had one of our top coaches from Harvard inducted into the Hall of Fame a number of years ago. And when he was inducted, he said, it is not so much what I've been able to do. It's what the sport of rowing does for the individuals. Because you have to be one. And some coaches don't like to give individual awards because the oneness in a boat, as you get closer to perfection, the boat goes faster. as you get closer to perfection, the boat starts to flow. There's a flow and there's a relaxation and there's a greater efficiency.
Bill, one
So,
of the things as you're talking, going by us, is a Canadian team training for kayaking, and this training team is actually vying for spots on the Olympics, and you can see them going by there. That is a paddle sport, of course. Those are independent paddles, and that's a Canadian kayaking team. So you're seeing that incredible access to the great waters and the training facilities. And again, I can't stress enough, this is a Canadian national team that is down here training as well, and they're on the screen now.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
well, that's what I alluded to earlier. I said most of the medals from one Olympics were from countries that trained here in Brevard County.
Yeah.
Look at the water conditions.
Let me just add something to that, Bill. I was just thinking, looking at this view of the barge canal, and recently we did a story on the evolution of the barge canal. I was thinking back to the days when those guys dug through this canal from the east to the west, joining this. Wonder what they would say about this today. Seeing these people from Canada and these kayaks coming up and down, man, what an incredible development this is. What a facility we've got here. I mean, this is something that has really no limit as far as the different types of water sports that we could draw here, right, Bill?
Well, just seeing what you have here is a promotion that will attract more colleges to Brevard County. And this is just one of 5 facilities in Brevard County.
Bill, we just had another
race.
Sorry to cut you off, but we just had another heat kickoff, and again, we've got the live coverage here. It's coming on, so we're going to get to the heat coverage.
Here they come.
So we have the 2 8-person teams and the 1 8-person team in the white boat here for Louisville as they come across in front of us here. So tell us what we're seeing here from the aerial shot.
We have the team on the right. You can see when they take their blade out of the water, they're somewhat slow. In other words, they're controlling the cadence and the ratio in the boat. You have more ratio when the rating is lower. So they looked, when I saw them, be rowing about a 30. Now the crew to our left now is Louisville, and they are closer to the 28. And I'm looking over at the far crew, and they're just about 28.9. So the precision there on the crew that's out front is a little more exact than the other 2 crews. What a lot of people don't know is that the coxswain does more than steer the boat. The coxswain is the coach. The coxswain is the motivating oneness in the boat. And when one of the oars comes out early, or it goes in early, or hangs at the catch, the coxswain corrects that. That is the main reason that you have a coxswain in the stern of the boat, so the coxswain can coach. In a 4, it's not as significant, and it's more aerodynamic to have the coxswain in the bow of the boat. But in the 8, the coaching component is a very important part of rowing. And the coaches are coaches. I mean, the coxswains are coaches.
On the note of the coxswain, as they roll by, their head is actually higher than those of the rowers. What are they exactly monitoring? What are they looking for other than the actual stroke per minute rate?
Well, the main thing is, when you look at a hull, it's round. The hull is round. The boat is narrow. If those oars are like someone on a wire, a trapeze wire or whatever, and you have that long pole, well, the long pole are the oars. And if one oar comes out early, the boat will tip to the other side. So it's important for all the oars to come out at the same time and with the same pressure on the oar. The coxswain's looking down the boat. The coxswain can see the heads. If a body is shifting over the gunnel, if it's moving one side or the other, the coxswain can pick it up, and the coxswain can say, 3 person, stay over the gunnel. or the coxswain can say, your weight is shifting to the stretcher at the catch, slowing the boat down. If you look at this boat right now, you look at the far right, the stern, you see it slows down at the catch. You can see the boat slows down. You don't want that to happen. You want to minimize the boat slowing down so the coxswain can feel, not only see, the coxswain can feel what's happening.
Right now we're seeing the four-person boats as they go by, and again that coxswain sits almost like a pilot, very low, like you said, in the bow of the boat. How much of the steering do they do? Is that is that one of their things where they guide the boat, or do they just rely on the steering and the calls?
Well, the coxswain wants to keep the rudder as straight as possible, because the more rudder the coxswain uses, the more drag there is. So the coxswain keeps the rudder as straight as possible. And if the boat is tending towards one direction or another, the coxswain calls for the other side to be a little sharper, a little longer, a little stronger to keep the boat straight, because you want to minimize the drag on the boat.
Let me ask you this question, and I'm going to ask you to put on your prior FIT administration type cap as opposed to the coach and expert when it comes to rowing. When you're particularly involved with a school that is a very engineering focused school, and this is going to go back to an earlier conversation I had with the team captain with Tennessee. What advantages do you have as a rowing team when you have some of the brightest engineering minds when it comes to the aquadynamics and the composite materials and the overall engineering with these boats, working with the engineering departments? And how does that play into the mindset of the athlete who is also that engineer mind?
Well, rowing has always been very successful at high-tech technological universities. MIT has had one of the top rowing programs for many, many years. In fact, it is a Division III school, but their rowing program is granted a Division I status for both the men and women. When we won our first Dadville Championship, which is like a Division II national championship, I had 6 ocean engineers in that boat. And some of our graduates have gone on to become composite engineers and actually work on designing and providing the composite material for racing shells.
So when it comes to the racing shells themselves, these boats are not exactly the same. And when we got up close to these, there were some nuances that we noticed that were a little bit different. Overall, they like the composite shell itself, whereas the riggers on Tennessee were aluminum, and Louisville went with the composite carbon fiber. Obviously, when weight and strength and different dynamics kick in, what are some of the rules that they have to follow when it comes to the overall design of the boat? Are there weight limits? Are there certain nuances that you steer clear of?
Yes, there's weight limits that a boat must comply with. In fact, at national championships, boats are weighed. And if the boat is a little lighter than, let's say, 205 pounds, if it's 200 pounds, they have to carry 5 pounds of sand, and it has to be looked at when they launch, and it has to be made sure that it's there when they finish the race. As far as having aluminum riggers compared to a composite rigger, that typically has to do with the boat manufacturer. The boat manufacturer feels most comfortable with this type of equipment. And so an 8, for example, a rowing 8 costs as much as $50,000. And so a lot of care with these Division I programs that you have here today, Tennessee and Louisville,
I would love
to
one.
have the best
Thank
equipment
you.
possible. And not only do they have it
Black.
with the boat, but they also have it with the oars. These oars are specific oars of specific length and specific blade design. And so you're seeing some of the best equipment possible with these two programs.
We
Not
were able
all
to
of-
get up close to some of these and you talked about the oars, and you know they have almost like a spoon vibe to them, but it seemed like some had different angles. Is that something you look at as far as how aggressively they catch the water?
Well, the blade design is called a hatchet now, when it used to be a more symmetrical blade. So it's a little thicker. The scoop is pretty much standard. In other words, you don't want it too much of a scoop that could actually make it harder to get out or press against the boat too much. So you want a little openness to it. But the exact design and the exact weight of the oar is based on the preference of the coach. They have ultra lightweight blades, and whereas before they were all wood, now with the composite oars, you have a rubberized handle, which prevents slippage, particularly in wet conditions. So again, it's a preference as to whether you want a large blade or a medium-sized blade. I'm not so sure if they make a smaller blade, but I always preferred a much larger blade so that there was less slippage and you could put more power into it and get more from each stroke.
Bill, it is an honor and a privilege having you here with us. My knowledge of rowing is so minimal. I became a Google expert here very, very quickly. But thank you so much for joining us today. I can't tell you how your knowledge and your experience is really contributing. And hopefully, my side of the broadcast, I'm asking some of the questions that people out there that may be new to rowing have as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And you know, we're trying to bring the best coverage we can, and we've got multiple cameras out here. We got the drone in the sky. It is a brisk, cooler day here, and of course I'm here with Terry Parks sitting next to me. So you're making this a great broadcast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Ron and Giles. To my knowledge, this is the first real broadcast we've had. We have done live stream coverage before, but it's been more of a tape delay type coverage. What you've really done is you've allowed people that aren't familiar with what we have in the Space Coast to see one of the quality training venues that we have, and this is doing so much good for the tourism component, because you have a national training center in Sarasota, but I mean, you have a national race course with 6 lanes in Sarasota. You have a training facility here, which will have a greater impact on tourism than the race course. So with the 30 plus teams that visit here and stay 10 days with over 50 people, it's having a great impact, and it's having a great impact because we have a great water system in Brevard County. It's just a beautiful, gorgeous site to train.
And again, today's are scrimmages, so you're not seeing that all out competition level. The mindset is a little bit different, where they are a little bit more relaxed. They're still very, very competitive athletes. I mean, and I have to say, I have to give a shout out to both these teams. Bill, hosting these young ladies here, they have been so incredibly nice. And when you see them out in the community, hopefully you'll meet and greet them at restaurants. And I'm talking obviously to the Space Coast in general. But when you see them out here, the Space Coast is just one of the best places, and so proud to be a Brevardian. And Terry, I still got Terry on the headset here. The effort that Brevard County is making, and we really can't stress it enough, that they really want to develop Brevard into being the premier go-to spring training spot for rowing. They want to be the crown jewel in the rowing preseason, and that's the efforts they're going to make. That's the financial commitment we're going to make, and we're going to reach out to these schools. But you guys are extremely reliant on feedback as well from other schools that are going to be seeing this as well. So Terry, go ahead and jump in and tell us about the vision a little bit here for Brevard.
Well, you're exactly right. Like you said, we have a goal of really putting this destination on a platform to be one of the, if not the premier training site in Florida or the Southeast or even the nation for that matter. We've made we have a plan. We've devised a plan, a marketing campaign. Anything and everything is going to be geared towards and this is one of the sports actually. There are other sports in our crosshairs, but with rowing, we have a tremendous opportunity here. And if just look at this production today, this could not be done by us alone. It came, we have Bill Juergens coming in with his expertise. And
again, can't stress enough having an expert online with us is fantastic.
Who else better than Bill Juergens online to speak to the Space Coast, the rowing on the Space Coast, the history of rowing, so on and so forth. And then obviously the Office of Tourism. We've made a commitment to go down this road. Also, Space Coast Daily. I mean, like I said, the production has been tremendous between the drone footage, the footage from the top of the condo, all the cameras and whatnot. So,
a big shout out to Gavin Keith and the production team, Zach, Juan, Josiah. I mean, these guys have all contributed. We're out here. This is our first time broadcasting this, so a lot of, with each one, it'll only get better.
Right.
We're already talking about a second and third drone,
right.
and onboard cameras.
And this broadcast is going out everywhere. I said I've had contacts. I've had a list of places, of schools in the Northeast, the Midwest, the Atlantic Coast, and our goal is to bring everybody down here, as many people that want to come. And again, we have different waterways, so we don't have to be all here. Anywhere in Brevard County.
I can tell you, on behalf of Space Coast Daily, we are extremely proud to be a part of this broadcast. Our entire team. Space Coast Daily has really established itself as one of the most trusted leaders in news, information, sports coverage, that really hyper-local mentality. And this is really something that we really want to focus on, and keeping our eyeballs here in the Brevard and on the Space Coast. But one of the things also is the fact that when this goes out and it's promotional video, more or less, this is why we do this. And I want to use a nautical euphemism when they say the tide rises all ships. Okay. When you start to see the spring training and the success we have in a sport like rowing, which is not a very Brevard-centric sport, although we are really building the foundation to get there, and that's really what the goal is. But it also brings in, you're talking about the future of lacrosse spring training here and the commitment that Brevard County is going to be making, bringing in dozens and dozens of teams. We have seen the success in soccer. We have baseball spring training coming up. So you're going to see that Brevard County is going to be the sports spring training mecca when it comes.
And the goal is not just spring training. Sports tourism around the country is taking off. If you haven't really paid attention, there's all types of things going on at different venues around the county. So, we're just trying to take it to another level.
And again, here we are. We have the three amigos here. And, of course, Bill Juergens online with us. But we're at the beautiful Dolphins Resort right here, Canal Side. Hey, boy, I can't tell you. This venue is fantastic.
Right.
I mean, they have gone, spared no detail in making sure that we are comfortable here. So a big shout out to everybody at Dolphins Resort. But I tell you, great food, drink, and not to mention the outright atmosphere. But we're underway with more action here with the 8-person teams. It seems like we have gotten a little bit more competitive with each one of these rounds as they start to kind of gear up.
Yep, I agree. It's sort of a feeling out process to begin, and then now you size everybody out, and now it's time to really get after it.
That's exciting stuff.
And again, we're bringing you this coverage right waterside, and as the ladies row their way past us, and again you can see there the two Tennessee teams out in front.
That Cape Crossing Resort, as you see it on the right, what a place for these teams to stay, right here at their training ground.
One of the benefits, as Giles just mentioned, they are literally staying waterside. And they get to see in their idle time, they get to enjoy the great benefits of being right here at one of the great restaurants. They get to see the wildlife, the dolphins frolicking in the water. But it cuts their time in the amount of travel because they literally just walked right out of their lodging onto their boats. And they were here for a rocket launch. Terry's trying to whisper that to me over here. Don't forget the rocket launch. You know what? I've lived here so long, I almost forget about the rocket launches. So, Bill, tell us, are you still online with us, Bill?
I'm with you.
Tell us a little bit about, are we actually, do my eyes deceive me, are we seeing more and more aggressive rowing as each heat comes? Is that part of the spring training process? It seems like they're a lot more aggressive right now than they were the first go-round as they were finding their way.
Well, in addition to spring training, you also have winter training. And winter training is like the first 3 weeks in January. And so then as you get into the spring training, what I just saw in the previous 8 race, I saw a very strong Tennessee women's 8, first 8 and second 8. They were very strong. They had very little check, which means slowing the boat down in between strokes. And they were very long. They were very fluid. Just what you had in that 8, you had some very good rowers. I mean, that have trained hard. And what you're doing in the spring training is you're getting in miles and miles and miles. And so, and then once you get the coordination in the boat and the flow in the boat, and then you start taking it up gradually. And you can see with the 4s, the 4s is a harder boat to row in the sense that it's heavier with the coxswain's weight distributed over 4 people instead of 8. And so you have a little heavier feel. But then when you're looking at this crew and you look at the backs, the oars in, what people don't know, and if you look at the legs are fully compressed. The shins are past perpendicular, and they put the blade in, and then they drive their legs down. And then they open their back towards the end of the leg drive, and then they draw their arms. Contrary to what most people think, is that they break their arms early. They're not breaking their arms at all at the catch. They're hanging on. Their whole momentum is hanging onto that blade and then pulling it at the end when the boat is picked up to speed, and it's easier. You've got high quality rowing, and I was thinking what Giles was saying earlier about being right on the resort, right on the water. I would think parents would love to come down and be able to watch or get a glimpse of their daughters or sons, for that matter, rowing. And I don't know if the coaches would want the parents, because one reason they come down here is that it's a bonding opportunity, a bonding between the rowers and developing that oneness, and more importantly, the team aspect.
You know, generationally, as a very old man, I'm going to say, you know, like we live in the world of the term the helicopter parent, and that's one of the things you really got to break as a coach, even at the high school level, so let alone at the collegiate level. So I think the independence and more so discouraging parents to be a part of the input is probably more along the line of a coach's, purview.
Well, the discipline that comes from rowing, we talked earlier about what are some of the qualities. Relationships, it develops relationships. It develops a oneness as far as doing the same thing within a boat. It helps with the mental focus and discipline is if you are not focused completely, then there will be modifications in the boat. You don't need any modifications. You don't need someone rushing. You need them flowing. You need them long. You need them powerful. It's the efficiency from the flow that allows you to pull harder, longer, and to maximize your endurance.
Bill, tell us a little bit about the global appeal of rowing, because the United States has had some success over recent years, but talk about some of the countries where rowing is really big. And of course, Giles talked about earlier some of the history coming out of England, but what are some of the other countries, particularly at the Olympic level, that we're going to see where rowing really has an impact on their sports culture?
Well, you'd mentioned seeing boys in the boat and the 1936 race in Munich, I think it was Munich, Germany. But anyway, it was in Germany. And the Germans have always had good crews. They're historic for it. They've had the Rotsburg crew. They've had just phenomenal rowing teams. But other countries that have good rowing programs, New Zealand has been doing very well. Australia has had exceptionally strong crews. England in the last decade has been at the top, one of the top crews in world competition. So, and Canada has been strong. So it's been a strong, very strong sport in England. And as Giles mentioned earlier about Cambridge and Oxford, we had a Florida Tech engineer who went over to go to school at Oxford, and he ended up stroking Oxford to a victory over Cambridge. And he stayed at Oxford and ended up getting his doctorate from Oxford, and then now works for NASA with his engineering doctorate. So it is a world sport. I can give you just another analogy. When we started at Florida Tech, when I started, I should say, in '69, coaching rowing, there were just 3 high schools in the state of Florida. Now there's over 35. So the sport continues to grow because it teaches values that are lifelong values, that are unselfish values, that, as I tell every graduate who's been on the rowing team and has gotten their degree from Florida Tech, do not sell yourself short. There is absolutely nothing you cannot do. With the hard work you put in and with the degree that you have, you can do anything your heart's desire.
When you're out recruiting for student athletes, particularly in rowing, and you have the facilities, and of course they're at Crane Creek down in Melbourne. Was it Crane Creek, or you guys there at the Melbourne Marina? You guys had a great boathouse right there. FIT had one of the premier facilities. When you have just access to the water like the Space Coast does, and our passion for the water, the cooperation for the water, our lifestyle just revolves around water sports, whether it's the conservation minded. I mean, we do everything we can to keep the lagoon clean. We're spending millions and millions of dollars to clean up the lagoon. Tell us a little bit about the recruiting purview about getting student athletes here to Florida to look at the programs.
Well, it's obvious that throughout the year the conditions are great, particularly the academic year, for people to be rowing. When I first started coaching, they would say, uh, uh, no wonder you do well because you have great conditions. And then our team started growing, so we would have close to 100 rowers, men and women. And then they would say, you have so many numbers that little wonder why you do well. And so the point is, it's a great place, and predominantly we have our students from the Northeast that come to Florida Tech, even though Florida has a large number. But I mean, particularly when I coached, we had more people from the Northeast than we did from the South. And so people love to be in the South. They love the to be able to row and not have to break ice or wait till the ice shifts so they can go out on the water. This has never been a problem. Our mean temperature here is 76 degrees. Not only do you have the beautiful waterways and you have canals, we have a boathouse down at Canal 54 where we have races, and the dimensions are very similar to the barge canal here. And so we have, then just 2 miles from campus on the Indian River, at the Melbourne Harbor, we have our other boathouse. And the reason we train primarily at that one is because of time. The reason going 18 miles down to Canal 54 takes too much time away from their studying schedule. But the reason people like it here, and they've told me this, many of them, is that I wanted to be at a place where I could get a quality education and I could train. And that I know my training will help me achieve greatness when I go on to national level. And we've had one of our rowers that learned to row at Florida Tech, and she won an Olympic gold medal. We had a male rower who learned to row at Florida Tech, and not only did he win 2 Olympic medals, both silver, but he was recognized as the top rower in the United States. And when he came to Florida Tech, he was excited about seeing the enthusiasm the rowers had for being a part of the team, wearing their logo jerseys, the spirit that they always seem to have. And I can't say any more than that, is that rowing may not be for everyone. As an athletics director, I cared about all sports equally, and each sport is unique to certain characteristics that individuals have and they train for. But what I can say, speaking of rowing, is that it teaches characteristics that, if not every day, several days a week, I get calls from people saying that they learn more from rowing as far as how to succeed in life than they did from the academic. That's what they said, not what I said.
So we're underway right now here with another heat for the 8-person boat. Having an expert online with us here, you can see these ladies as they make their way across. It's a lot more competitive right now. The boats are staying much tighter. Right now you're seeing a great shot, but the barge canal itself is roughly, give or take, let's say 100 yards wide. I'm going to guess here. I've seen way too many football fields in my lifetime, but I'm going to say it's roughly 100 yards across. What dynamic does the body of water change in the performance of the boat when it comes to the width or the protection on either side? That may sound like an obvious question, but talk about like what changes with water depth and how wide the body of water is.
Well, I think we can talk about several different things. Is that this canal is running east-west? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly east-west.
Right. And so the prevailing winds in Florida are from the northeast. So if you look to the right, you see the reflections, the calmness on the right side of the canal. And having flat water is easier to teach the skills. And actually, the better skills you have, the easier it is to be able to handle rougher conditions. And so you want to teach technique now. And if you look at these three crews, the middle crew is rowing about a stroke beneath the crew on the right. And the crew on the right, also when they started, they were up above 32, 34, the crew on the right. So the one on the right knows that they're going to have a tough challenge with the crew in the middle. And I should also add that Louisville is rowing very well. You watch them carry their blade height. They're not dragging them. They're putting them together. I think the difference here is probably there's some stronger rowers. And physicality is important. When you look at a national team for women, it's not surprising that you have a number of 6-foot rowers, 6'2", even taller in the women's eights these days.
You know, a fun fact that I did find, and again, I'm a Google/Wikipedia now expert on rowing only, but one of the things that it says, they claim that rowing a 2,000-meter race equivalent to 1.25 miles is equal to playing back-to-back basketball games without a halftime or break. I mean, that tells you a little bit about the athleticism.
Yeah, they've done a lot of physiological testing. In fact, when I rowed in the early 70s, we had a physiologist named Fritz Hagerman who would, put mask on us for oxygen uptake and also measure the lactates and the byproducts of working hard, aerobic capacity and anaerobic capacity, all those components. It is one of the most demanding sports there is. I think it ranks right up there with cross-country skiing, which is extremely demanding. And
now,
when they look at the lung capacities, and I think they stopped the race.
They did stop the race.
And the reason they stopped it, that the blades were overlapping. And when the blade's overlapping, what that does is it causes the crew to not be as effective in pulling the oar. So the official saw this overlap, and the official stopped the race, and the official's now asking the crews to turn around and go back to the starting line because you had 4 crews here. And you mentioned earlier, how does the width of the body affect rowing? Well, the narrower the body, the calmer the wind's going, is going to have less effect on the water condition, and unless it's coming right down east to west, and that's not typical of the conditions. So the other component here is that you need equal depth. If you have, when you watch the drone, you'll see some sand shallows along the race course. In other words, some parts of it have some sand, which means it's not as deep. And the shallower the water, the more friction is placed on the hull, and the hull is a little slower. However, because it's a canal and it has to be able to accommodate large boats as well, is that it's dredged frequently to make sure that it has adequate depth. And so the faster courses are in deeper water. And
we're going to see them get restaged now, so they're going to start back from the starting point, but they'll get a clean start. There's no penalties.
There may be a warning to a crew. The official can accrue a warning, but since it's not a buoy course, and that it's less likely that they would on a buoy course. If a crew gets out of lane, they can actually be disqualified. But this is what you would call a friendly race, and there's no need to disqualify anyone for maybe having a freshman coxswain. I'm not saying that that's the case, but typically being a great coxswain is like being a great rower. It takes many, many hours of hard work. And I'll add this one last point, is that rowing tends to correlate well with the hard work you put into it. It correlates to the results, positive results you get out of it, because it is such a demanding endurance sport and a demanding physical, strength sport. It sort of blends all those qualities together.
For our viewers popping in and out, or those of you just joining us, we want to welcome Bill Juergens. And, of course, I'm Ron Lighthall with Space Coast Daily. We've got Giles Malone with us and Terry Parks. And we are bringing you coverage of rowing at the collegiate level here, as we have the University of Tennessee Lady Volunteers and the Louisville Cardinals, and they are here for a scrimmage, a type of spring training / winter training here at the Barge Canal at Merritt Island, and we are being hosted by Dolphins Bar and Grill. Fantastic hosts. If you haven't been up here, this is one of the premier venues here. And again, I am here with Terry Parks. He is with the Space Coast Office of Tourism, and a light sprinkle is coming down. So, Bill, we're going to go with your knowledge. There's no lightning in the forecast, but it is beginning to sprinkle. And we have a start here again, and they are off and running. So even in the sprinkle, you talk about the change in the oar itself, and these are great shots that Gavin and the production team are bringing us here. You can see that the oars, their design, have almost a flag type design, and you called that hatchet?
Yeah. It's not symmetrical, but it allows greater contact with the water.
And as they slide by there, you can see a great shot there of the boats themselves, and of course that is the shell, the boat itself. You have the riggers that actually hold the oars, and what separates rowing from paddling is the fact that the oars are actually attached to the boat with one of those for lack of a better term, like an oar knuckle. It just kind of goes. So it's a very wordy sport. You really got to know what you're talking about, and unfortunately, I'm not well versed, but we are so thankful to have you on air with us. So thank you again.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I do enjoy rowing, and particularly watching these crews. They're very good crews. When I coached and still today, I will say I've never seen a perfect rower. I would use the analogy is that handling an oar is like a golf club, and you know how hard it is to hit a golf ball straight, and with the power needed and the team and the mechanics of a swing. You have the same thing with rowing. You need to put that oar in so you're not slowing the boat down. You need to be in a strong position. You need to use your power so it is in the strongest position, using the driving of the hips, which is driving the legs, getting most of the power in. And then when you at the finish, you need to make sure you're getting the blade out together.
I want to just let everybody know, for those of you at the collegiate level that may be thinking about coming to Brevard County, one, we would absolutely love to have you down here, and we definitely want to extend to coaches or anybody that would be watching this to, if you have any interest, to reach out to the Space Coast Office of Tourism, and of course you can reach out to Terry. And Terry, if you put the headsets on there, you can kind of share some of that information with any potential coaches watching this. Doesn't even have to be at the NCAA level. I mean, there are amateur teams that can come down here.
Amateur teams, international teams, obviously collegiate teams. Just reach out to me. We'll see if we can put something on the stream. But our number at the office is area code 321-433-4470.
Southern hospitality.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you this, as a longtime Brevardian, and I know Bill can verify this, you can verify this, I absolutely love being a Brevardian. I mean, there's just something special about Brevard. I am extremely proud in my little part to represent Brevard when we're out and about working with the Space Coast, and of course, just a great community. And we can't stress that enough to anybody potentially coming down here. You're going to have extremely safe, clean. You're going to have all the necessary needs that you need met. The hotels, there's so much competition for the tourist dollar. We don't have bad hotels.
Right.
And I tried to tell somebody that, a bad hotel won't last. It will get either renovated or there's just too much competition to be a bad hotel. And that's one of the great things about being a tourist destination spot. But also at the same time, rowing specific, there are experts like Bill who have built programs. We have, programs like Space Coast Crew. We have the facilities. We have the foundation here. But the most important thing, and you and I had talked about this a number of times, is the vision. And Brevard County, the Space Coast Office of Tourism is eager to work with those teams. And what better way to deal with somebody when there's zero cynicism, there is zero hassle, and we want you here.
Absolutely.
So we're going to roll out the red carpet. So if you make that phone call and you've got a collegiate rowing team, we're gonna do everything we can to make sure that your needs are met.
Yeah, we sure will. And like I said in the earlier interview, the last couple of weeks I've had the honor and privilege to meet with Melbourne, the row team, and meet with Space Coast Crew, and meet with Sebastian Rowing River, and all of those organizations are great, and they all have a vision. They all want to promote the sport of rowing here on the Space Coast. So it's been my experience is that, anytime you get a group of people with one goal in mind, and they don't care, who gets the credit, who gets, anything can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can be done from either a rowing aspect or even a competition aspect down the road. I mean, who knows what may happen because of this. So, but we have enough people here. We have enough interest. We have enough desire to grow the sport. So we're going to see what comes of it.
And we love our water sports.
Absolutely.
I mean, Brevard County, we just absolutely love our water sports. And the other thing is, this is in its infancy. Today's broadcast is the first time we've ever actually done this broadcast. And of course, we're going to grow from there. But who knows, we could be just in the shadows of a intercollegiate spring invitational or something where you really are seeing more competitive teams down here. It's not that these teams aren't competitive, but they have a gentleman's agreement that they are going to throttle back on the training, and this is all about boats in the water, technique, getting the stroke counts in and working those on the water. But I don't see us not hosting an event here in the future.
You know what? And I said this earlier today, I don't see why not. Again, I'm just, I'm a basketball guy. I can look at venues
right.
and see, so many locker rooms, so many, what are the amenities that each facility has. But it looks like, we could do something.
We have a lot of water, Terry.
We have a lot of water here. We sure do. But again, that's not my expertise, so I won't speak to that. But
yeah.
As far as training, we can definitely have people here. Like Giles said, we have the condos here, townhomes. We're sitting in a restaurant, a full-service restaurant. I watch myself. It's being streamed up here on the TVs behind me. This is a great opportunity, a great setting.
I'm going to throw a question back to you, Bill, who is joining us. He's obviously not here on your screen right now, but he's joining us via the phone. Bill, tell us a little bit about what it would take to host a competitive level rowing event, and it just seems like we would be absolutely perfect because of the viewing space that we have with our causeways, and if we did have it in the more, I'm going to use this term loosely, the more open waters of the river as opposed to the canals and the barge canals. And if we did host an event like that, tell us from your experience and the way you hosted FIT tournaments, what could be some of the vision that we could look forward to if Brevard went that route?
Just going back, thinking about some of the events that we hosted here, we've had races with Syracuse and Yale, all in the same race. We've had some exciting races because it is a training site and not a race site, is that the importance of this site is to allow training for long periods of time. Now, you can have races like they had today where you can have 2 or 3 boats going against one another and multiple heats. We have some venues that can give you 3-mile races, if you will. There's so many different options, but where the interest is and what the coaches are thinking is most important. The coaches want a lot of work time. They want a lot of miles and miles, low cadence, really developing the strength, the skill, the aerobic capacity. And so I think we need to be careful not to get where Sarasota is, which has a race course. You mentioned earlier about we have crews coming from all over the world. At Sarasota, when they go there to race, they can come here to Brevard County to train prior to that race. Because over in Sarasota, that race course is the best, but it's not the best for training and preparation. These long courses that we have on the Indian River, the canals, afford themselves to exactly what the coach wants. Now, typically, as a reward to the rowers, since they've been training so hard, they like to have a competition at the end of it. And sometimes maybe their conferences or the NCAA require that there be a competition. So they have this competition either because it's a reward for all the hard work and to show the results, or because the NCAA, in order to have this type of training trip, they have to do it because there's a competition. So I think we just have to keep that in mind. This is, at one time, Florida Tech had a race with Yale. We ended up beating Yale. But this is early season, you see. And so it wasn't part of their regular schedule. And it still was a positive thing for Yale to have competed against us. We did a 2,000-meter race. So I'm not going to envision a race as the draw, because the real draw is the perfect training condition that you have here. I've lived in Brevard County for 69 years, and as I tell all the people that I talk to about it, this is a perfect place to be. And then if a hurricane comes in, they'll say, I thought you said it was a perfect place. Well, it is a perfect place, but it can't be a perfect place every single time. It is a beautiful venue. I will not ever change my position that I had 10 years ago, is that there is no better training facility in America, or for that matter, anywhere in the world than here. And why is it here? Is because not everyone can train at the same site. You've got 5 different sites, and they're all good sites.
And what we saw right now on the screen is the final heat, I believe, for the 8-person rowing. So they've gotten their strokes in for the day, and we're going to see the 4-man team, the 4-person boats. They'll be making their way down in their final heat. So as they get these boats out of the water, Bill, I can't thank you enough on behalf of Space Coast Daily and everybody associated with our broadcast today for taking time out of your schedule and in your infirm state. You did a great job. I know you're battling COVID. You overcame that by getting on the phone with us. So thank you so much for lending your expertise, and the pride you have in this sport was extremely exuded, and it came over very well. And I thank you very much for being a part of our broadcast today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, Terry Parks is a good friend of mine. Giles Malone, we've been good friends for over 30 years. And it's just great being a part of Brevard County and all that Space Coast Tourism is doing to let people know all about it.
And
so thank you, Ron.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to sign off now, and best of luck with your future endeavors. I will talk to you again before too long. Thank you.
We certainly do appreciate it, and thank you, and get well. Take care of yourself, sir.
Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
So what we're seeing on screen right now is the final 4-person boats making their way down the canal. And again, I want to thank everybody in our very first broadcast that we are, doing this. Terry, give us your assessment today. I thought things went great.
I've been blown away.
We have a notebook here full of notes that we are going to make this better with each broadcast. But what a great job today. We had drone footage up until the rains came. Light rain, but the show must go on.
Absolutely. We've had drone footage. We've had the footage from the top of the condominium there. I've been very, very impressed just for the total production, the in and outs, the coordination, the communication. Because I was here at 8 o'clock this morning. I mean, we've been here for a long time.
We have been.
So just to see it all come, and I was tossing and turning last night, wondering about the weather, wondering about how it was going to look. Were people going to be in the right places? Was Giles going to make it? but with all that being said, this is our first venture into this, and I think this is the beginning of something that's going to be pretty good.
With our notes, and every broadcast gets better and better. What a great job. This is something we can be really proud of here on the Space Coast.
And you did a yeoman's job, too.
Well, I appreciate it.
You did a great job.
My exposure to rowing was so minimal, and like I said, I can't stress it enough that I became a Google expert this morning, and that's it. And I did realize this is one of those sports that's very wordy. Yeah. There's very specific words when it comes to it, but it's such a romantic sport. This is not a collision type competition. This has a certain nuanced romance to it. You see that in film. The film when they're delivered, there's always a certain level of dignity when it comes to rowing. It's a very dignified sport, very disciplined, and it has a great history. I mean, what a fantastic history, and to be a part of that. And hopefully myself, like so many viewers, this is my your first introduction to rowing or anything about rowing, and you learn, and it's interesting. But I have to say, I'm only 10 years removed from my first ever seeing lacrosse, and I absolutely love it.
Okay.
So we're really looking forward to you bringing more of that lacrosse spring training.
Yeah, we had a representative here, I want to say a week or so ago. She came down from Boston, and She was interested with the notion of having training here. We viewed visited some sites here in the county. Very impressed with some of them. So we're going to see what comes of that as well.
You know,
Gavin Keith, really want to thank you and your team. What a great job today from the Space Coast Daily Super Drone. Those images will stay with me for a long time.
They were immaculate.
Yeah, that's
something big. This is huge.
This was fantastic. But again, we also have to thank Dolphins Bar and Grill for having us here. What a great venue. I mean, we can't say enough about their hospitality. They were extremely cooperative in our setup early. They have given us the space. Again, one of the premier venues here on Merritt Island, right at the Barge Canal. Great place to dolphin watch, wildlife watch, rocket launch watch, all the different sunset watch. I mean, this is a place where you really want to go. It's designed around that, the Tiki Hut out here. So we're going to be wrapping things up here, and just an absolute pleasure to be a part of this. I'm very, very proud to be a small part of this today. And what a great team! I'm going to try to name them all. We had Juan Rodriguez, Zach Clark, Giles Malone, of course, and Gavin Keith and his team. Josiah, you have to forgive me, but he had another person with him. I didn't catch his name. Tom Palermo. And Terry, you being a wonderful guest for us today, and I can't thank Bill Juergens enough, whose insight and knowledge of the sport of rowing, its history here in Brevard County, and the importance of hosting these events in Brevard County. And I know
and what it means to tourism.
What it means to tourism, heads in beds, taxes, and I hope that the people at home understand that heads in beds, that's the reason we don't pay taxes. I mean, tourism tax is so important to Brevard County, and how important it really is to host these events, get these promotions out there.
I was speaking with the manager from Cape Crossing. He was saying that the Brown University rowing team spent $100,000 in accommodations. They were here for 17 nights. They had 19 rooms, and
it was I think 100 students or
one team. $100,000 in local revenue for a hotel. Doesn't include their meals, their gas at the gas stations, going out to the Space Center. I mean, you talk about economic impact for Brevard County. This is big.
Yeah. Economic impact has been just the experience, being a former collegiate student athlete myself, everybody wants to feel good, like something special. And with facilities like this, you can definitely do this. Like these young ladies, some of them I spoke with yesterday and today, they had no idea that this was going on.
Could they have been nicer? They were just fantastic.
Great representatives, great ambassadors for their respective colleges.
Every single person that we came in contact could not have been nicer. And it's just something great about the student athlete and how happy and this is their reward, coming down here. They were excited to be down here.
And now we're able to give them something that they're going to have forever. Because they can have access to this
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They can go home and critique their rowing skills.
There you go. Yeah.
What a nice place to have. I've noticed a lot of the families here, Terry, sitting around from the rowing. They're sitting here having a nice lunch, having drinks, watching their kids on their sculls.
And cheering.
Looking on the big screens, sharing it, worldwide. This is exciting stuff. I want to congratulate you, Terry, for having this vision.
Thank you.
Putting this together, and this is the start of something big here on the Space Coast, or a continuance, I should say.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said earlier, I couldn't have done it by myself without the support of our office, Peter Cranis and John Giantonio, and all of our staff there. I mean, this could not have happened without them, and then yourself, and then obviously Ron, you did a yeoman's job today. Thank you so much.
There you go. And if you're watching out there anywhere worldwide, we want to invite you down to the Space Coast. There's no place like it. Launches 3 or 4 times a week. The surf, the sounds of Cocoa Beach, the Barge Canal for your activities. These hotels are first class. Restaurants, and the pricing is very affordable, isn't it?
It is.
Comparatively speaking.
Well, we want to sign off. We want to thank everybody. And again, click on those links. And we're going to have some coverage here shortly with some of the coaches. So stay tuned to our Space Coast Daily Facebook page for you locals. We're going to have some interviews with the coaches and more and more feedback. But start something big, guys.
Looking forward to
Awesome.
it.
So for Terry Parks,
Thank you.
Giles Malone, I'm Ron Lighthall, signing off, and we want to thank you for joining us today, and it has been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you the next time right here on Space Coast Daily, Brevard County's leader in news, sports, and entertainment.
All right.
T-minus 6, 5, all engines, 10 seconds and counting, 9, 8, ignition sequence start, 7, T-minus 6, 5, all engines running, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 10 seconds and counting. 9, 8, ignition sequence start. 7, T-minus 6, 5, all engines running. 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 10 seconds and counting. 9, 8, ignition sequence start. 7, T-minus 6, 5, all engines running. 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.